The rain hammered against my workshop windows like accusations I wasn't ready to hear. My name is Aiden Drayven, and at 35, I thought I knew my wife well enough to spot her lies. Turns out, I was spectacularly wrong about that. Zara had left 3 days ago for what she called a wellness retreat in Vermont with her gallery friends. "Just need some space to breathe, honey," she'd said, kissing my cheek with those perfectly glossed lips. "You understand, right? All this stress from work." I understood, all right. I understood that my commercial drone photography business was paying for her little escape while she complained about my hobby to anyone who'd listen. But I kept my mouth shut and waved goodbye from our front porch in coastal Maine, watching her BMW disappear into the morning fog. What I didn't understand was why her location kept pinging from a luxury hotel in Boston instead of the rustic Vermont spa she'd described. My drone monitoring software, which I used for tracking my equipment, also tracked our shared devices for security purposes. Call it professional paranoia, but when you've got $50,000 worth of camera equipment, you learn to keep tabs on things. The first red flag came Tuesday night. Zara's phone had pocket-dialed me around 11 p.m. Instead of hanging up, I listened. What I heard made me freeze. Laughter. Her laughter, but different. Throaty, intimate, the way she used to laugh with me. Then a man's voice, deep and confident. "Come here, beautiful. The champagne's getting warm." More laughter. The rustle of fabric. A soft moan that I recognized all too well. "Wellness trip, my ass," I muttered to the empty house. Unless yoga now involves moaning. I spent the next hour cross-referencing her social media activity with her location data. Zara had been careful, but not careful enough. Her Instagram showed carefully cropped photos of hotel amenities, a marble bathroom, room service champagne, city lights through floor-to-ceiling windows. None of it matched the rustic Vermont retreat she'd described. By Wednesday morning, I'd identified the hotel. The Meridian Boston, presidential suite level. A quick call to my buddy Terry, who worked in hotel management, confirmed what I already suspected. The suite was booked under a corporate account belonging to Kessler Tech Solutions. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Damian Kessler. I knew that name from Zara's work stories, the married tech entrepreneur she'd mentioned meeting at industry events. "Such a brilliant businessman," she'd gushed, "really understands brand synergy." Apparently, he understood more than brand synergy. I could have called her right then, could have screamed and demanded explanations. Instead, I did what I do best. I watched and waited. 3 years of marriage had taught me that Zara was at her most dangerous when cornered directly, but she had weaknesses, blind spots I could exploit. Thursday evening, I decided I needed a drink and some human contact that didn't involve staring at surveillance data. The Sanctuary was Zara's favorite wine bar, a converted old church with soaring ceilings and stained glass windows. Ironic name, considering what I'd discovered about my wife's faithlessness. I was nursing my second whiskey when I spotted her. Lyra Ventrix, 31 years old, gallery curator, and Zara's closest friend. She was holding court at the bar, her auburn hair catching the colored light from the windows, surrounded by the usual crowd of art world sycophants. Lyra was beautiful in that sharp, dangerous way that made smart men stupid. She was also catty, self-interested, and had never particularly liked me. Perfect. I approached the bar, timing my arrival for a lull in her conversation. "Lyra, fancy seeing you here." She turned, and I caught the flicker of surprise in her green eyes before she composed herself. "Aiden? What a pleasant surprise." Her smile was razor-sharp. "Shouldn't you be missing your wife right about now?" "Actually, I was hoping to catch up with you. Aren't you supposed to be on the wellness trip with Zara?" The question hung in the air between us. Lyra's smile shifted, becoming something predatory. She glanced around at her audience, then leaned closer to me, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Oh, honey." She smirked, and I could smell her expensive perfume mixed with wine. She's with her lover. The words hit me like ice water, even though I'd been expecting them. Hearing the confirmation spoken aloud made it real in a way that surveillance data couldn't. But Lyra wasn't finished. She pulled out her phone, fingers dancing across the screen with practiced efficiency. "Look at this," she said, angling the device so only I could see. Zara's Instagram account, but not the public version I'd been monitoring. This was her close friend's story, the one I apparently wasn't close enough to see. Photos of her and Damien Kessler in the hotel suite, his hand on her waist, her head on his shoulder, both of them looking disgustingly happy. "She's been seeing him for months," Lyra continued, her voice carrying just enough to intrigue her audience without revealing details. "Started as a business thing, became personal real quick. You know how Zara gets when she's bored." I stared at the photos, my mind racing through implications and possibilities. In the background, I could hear the murmur of conversation, the clink of glasses, the normal sounds of people living their normal lives while mine imploded. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Lyra shrugged, taking a sip of her wine. "Because you deserve better than her lies. And because—" She paused, studying my face with those calculating green eyes. "Forget her, Aiden. Dinner with me tonight?" The invitation caught me completely off guard. I stared at her, processing the implications. Lyra Ventrix, Zara's best friend, was asking me out while simultaneously destroying my marriage. I was shocked, I said later, when people asked about that moment. But the truth was more complicated. I was shocked, yes, but I was also seeing an opportunity. "You know what?" I said, loud enough for her art world friends to hear. "I'd love that." Lyra's smile widened. "Wonderful. There's this new place downtown." "Actually," I interrupted, pulling out my phone, "how about we start with a drink right here? This place has such great atmosphere." Before she could respond, I'd taken a selfie of us, her leaning into the frame with that predatory smile, me looking relaxed and happy. I posted it immediately to my social media, tagging not just Lyra, but several of Zara's work contacts, who I knew followed my accounts. "There," I said, showing her the post. "Now everyone knows I'm having a good evening." Lyra laughed, but I caught the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "You work fast." "I'm a photographer," I replied. "Timing is everything." As we settled into a corner booth, Lyra's friends drifting away to give us privacy, I felt the first stirrings of a plan forming in my mind. Zara thought she was so clever, so careful with her affair, but she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd trusted her friend, and now that friend was sitting across from me, wine-flushed and vindictive, ready to spill every secret she knew about my wife's double life. "So," I said, raising my glass, "tell me everything." The next morning, I woke up with a clear head and a clearer purpose. Lyra had been more than willing to share details about Zara's affair over dinner, each revelation delivered with the casual cruelty that made her so effective in the art world. By the time we'd finished our second bottle of wine, I had a complete picture of my wife's betrayal. The affair had started 6 months ago at a brand partnership conference. Damien Kessler had approached Zara about a collaboration between his tech company and her marketing firm. What began as business lunches evolved into afternoon meetings at his downtown apartment, and eventually into weekend getaways disguised as work trips. "She thinks she's so clever," Lyra had said, stabbing her salad with unnecessary violence. "Always talking about how you don't appreciate her ambition, how you're holding her back. Meanwhile, she's playing house with a married man who'll never leave his wife." The most damaging revelation came near the end of the evening. Zara's brand partnership with Kessler Tech wasn't just personal, it was professional fraud. She'd been feeding Damien inside information about her other clients' marketing strategies, giving his company an unfair advantage in bidding wars. "She showed me the contracts," Lyra had whispered, leaning across the table. Kessler Tech has been underbidding everyone by exactly 5%. That's not coincidence. That's insider information. Now, sitting in my home office with coffee and a legal pad, I began planning my response. The old Aiden would have confronted Zara directly, would have demanded explanations and apologies. But the old Aiden hadn't known his wife was capable of this level of deception. The new Aiden was going to be much more strategic. My first call was to our bank. "Hi, this is Aiden Drayven. I need to make some changes to our joint accounts." 20 minutes later, I'd moved our savings into a new account with only my name on it, changed all the passwords, and set up automatic bill pay for the house and utilities. Perfectly legal. Maine was a common property state, but I had every right to protect our assets during a marital dispute. Next, I called our insurance agent. "I need to update my beneficiaries and add a clause about infidelity." Another legal maneuver. If Zara wanted to play games, she could do it without the safety net of my life insurance policy. The third call was to Mags Brennan, Zara's work rival at the marketing firm. Mags had never liked Zara, and the feeling was mutual. They'd been competing for the same promotion for 2 years, with Zara's Kessler Tech account giving her a significant advantage. "Aiden?" Mags sounded surprised to hear from me. "Is everything okay?" "That depends on your definition of okay," I said. "I have some information about Zara's Kessler Tech partnership that might interest you. Are you free for coffee?" We met at a small cafe downtown, away from their office building. Mags was a sharp woman in her 40s, with graying hair and intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She listened without interruption as I explained what I'd learned about the insider information sharing. "Snake," she muttered when I finished. I knew something was off about those contracts. Kessler Tech was always exactly 5% under our bids, like they had a crystal ball. "What would happen if HR found out about this?" I asked. Mags smiled grimly. "Corporate espionage is a firing offense. Hell, it might even be criminal depending on how much money we're talking about." She paused, studying my face. "You want me to report her?" "I want you to do whatever you think is right for your company," I replied. "I'm just sharing information." By the time I got home, Mags had already sent a detailed email to HR and the company's legal department. I knew because she'd copied me on it. Professional courtesy, she called it. My phone buzzed with a text from Terry. "Saw your post with the gallery chick. You okay, man?" I called him back. Terry Morrison was my oldest friend, a blue-collar guy who worked in hotel management and had no patience for drama. He was also completely loyal and discreet when needed. "I need a favor," I said without preamble. "What kind of favor?" "The kind that involves Zara's BMW and a very public location." Terry was quiet for a moment. "She finally did it, didn't she? The thing you were worried about." "Yeah, she did." "What do you need?" I explained my plan. Terry listened, asked a few practical questions, then agreed. "Give me 2 hours," he said. "And Aiden? I'm sorry, man. You deserve better." While Terry handled his part of the operation, I focused on social media. The photo with Lyra had already generated dozens of likes and comments, including several from Zara's work colleagues asking where she was. I responded to each comment with carefully crafted ambiguity. "Zara's taking some personal time. I'm keeping myself busy." The beauty of social media warfare was its subtlety. I wasn't accusing anyone of anything, wasn't making dramatic proclamations. I was just present, visible, living my life while my wife was conspicuously absent. My phone rang at 3 p.m., Zara's number, calling from Boston. "Hi, honey," I answered, my voice warm and casual. "How's the wellness retreat?" "It's fine." She sounded distracted. "Listen, I just saw your post from last night. You were out with Lyra?" "Yeah, ran into her at the sanctuary. She said you weren't on the trip with her, so we grabbed dinner. Nice woman when you get to know her one-on-one." Silence on the other end. I could practically hear the gears turning in Zara's head. trying to figure out what Lyra might have told me. "What did you two talk about?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "Oh, you know, art, business, relationships. She had some interesting insights about trust and loyalty in friendships." More silence. Then, "Aiden, I should tell you. Actually, honey, I'm in the middle of something. Can we catch up when you get back? I love you." I hung up before she could respond. Let her stew on that for a while. 20 minutes later, Terry called. "It's done. Zara's car is now parked in the lot behind Damian Kessler's apartment building. Took some photos for you, too." "You're a good friend, Terry." "Yeah, well, just remember that when this all blows up." The photos Terry sent were perfect. Zara's distinctive BMW with its vanity plates, clearly visible in the parking lot of Damian's upscale apartment complex. The timestamp showed they were taken during her supposed wellness retreat. Not proof of adultery by themselves, but certainly suggestive when combined with everything else. I posted one of the photos to my Instagram story with the caption, "Interesting where cars end up when you're not paying attention." Then I tagged the location and waited. The response was immediate. Zara's phone started ringing within minutes. I let it go to voicemail. "Aiden, what the hell are you doing? Call me back right now." Instead, I poured myself a whiskey and started planning phase 2 of my quiet war. Zara thought she was playing chess while I played checkers. Time to show her that I'd been studying the board a lot longer than she realized. My laptop chimed with a new email. It was from Mags. "HR wants to meet with Zara first thing Monday morning. Thought you should know." I smiled and raised my glass to the empty room. "Checkmate, darling." Saturday morning brought the kind of gray, drizzling weather that made coastal Maine look like a Stephen King novel. Perfect atmosphere for what I had planned. The annual arts festival was happening downtown, a weekend-long celebration that drew tourists and locals alike to browse galleries, watch street performances, and pretend to understand abstract sculpture. Zara never missed it, partly for business networking, partly because she loved being seen at cultural events. This year, she was going to get more attention than she bargained for. I'd spent Friday evening making preparations. The festival's main stage featured a large LED display for announcements and sponsor messages. Through my commercial photography connections, I'd arranged to have some of my drone footage featured in the rotating display of local artists' work. What the organizers didn't know was that I'd also gained access to the display's wireless network. A little social engineering, a few technical favors from Terry's IT friends, and suddenly I had the ability to accidentally mirror certain devices to the big screen. Zara's device, specifically. She'd returned from Boston late Friday night, letting herself into what she still thought was our shared home. I'd been waiting in the kitchen, sitting calmly at the breakfast table with a cup of coffee and divorce papers spread out in front of me. "We need to talk," she'd said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "Do we?" I'd replied, not looking up from the legal documents. "I think everything's pretty clear." She'd tried to explain, to justify, to spin her affair into something that was somehow my fault. I'd listened with the detached interest of a scientist observing a specimen. When she finished her performance, I'd simply said, "I'll be staying at Terry's for the weekend. You should probably find somewhere else to be on Monday." "What happens Monday?" "That's when your HR meeting is scheduled. Might want to call a lawyer." The look on her face had been worth every moment of planning. Now, standing in the festival crowd with Lyra on my arm, I watched Zara work the crowd near the main stage. She was in full networking mode, air-kissing colleagues and potential clients, pretending everything was normal. She hadn't seen me yet. "Are you sure about this?" Lyra asked, her voice nervous. "What you're planning seems extreme." "Cold feet?" I asked. "You're the one who started this by telling me about the affair. I thought you'd confront her, maybe get a divorce. I didn't think you'd go nuclear." I looked down at her. Lyra was beautiful, but she was also the kind of person who threw stones and then worried about the windows breaking. You wanted drama, Lyra. This is what drama looks like. Before she could respond, I spotted my target. Zara was standing near the main stage, chatting with her boss and several potential clients. Perfect positioning. I pulled out my phone and opened the app I'd designed to mirror Zara's device to the festival's display screen. The technical details were simple. Her phone was still connected to our shared iCloud account, and I'd never removed my access to her device backups. "What are you doing?" Lyra whispered, giving everyone a show. I activated the mirror function just as Zara received a text message. The message popped up on her phone screen and, simultaneously, on the massive LED display behind the main stage. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Last night was incredible. D." The crowd near the stage began murmuring, pointing at the display. Someone laughed. Zara, still focused on her conversation, hadn't noticed yet. Another message appeared. "Tell your husband you're working late again." Now people were definitely paying attention. I watched as recognition dawned on faces in the crowd. Many of these people knew Zara professionally, knew she was married to me. "Oh my God," Lyra breathed. "Aiden, turn it off." But I wasn't done. More messages were appearing as Damien continued texting, unaware that his private conversation was being broadcast to half the local art community. "Room 412 at the Meridian. I'll have champagne waiting. Wear that black dress I like, the one your husband bought you." That last message broke the dam. The crowd erupted in gasps and nervous laughter. Someone shouted, "Whose phone is that?" Another voice called out, "Isn't that Zara Meller?" Finally, Zara turned toward the commotion. I watched her face cycle through confusion, recognition, and horror as she saw her private messages displayed for everyone to read. She spun around, scanning the crowd, and her eyes locked onto mine. The look she gave me could have melted steel. "Technical difficulties," I announced loudly, pulling out my phone and making a show of disconnecting the mirror function. "Sorry about that, folks. These wireless displays can be tricky." But the damage was done. Phones were out. People were taking pictures and recording videos. Within minutes, screenshots of Zara's messages would be circulating on social media. Zara pushed through the crowd toward me, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "You bastard!" she hissed when she reached me. "How could you do this?" "Do what?" I asked innocently. "I just came to support local art. Isn't that right, Lyra?" Lyra, to her credit, played her part perfectly. "It was just a technical glitch, Zara. These things happen with wireless networks." "Don't!" Zara snapped. "Don't you dare pretend this was an accident." The crowd was watching now, sensing drama. Zara's boss, Margaret Chen, approached with a concerned expression. "Zara, is everything all right? Those messages on the screen?" "It was a mistake," Zara said quickly. "A technical error. My phone got hacked or something." Margaret's expression was skeptical. "We should probably talk on Monday. There are some concerns HR wants to discuss with you anyway." I watched Zara's face crumble as she realized the full scope of what was happening. Her affair was now public knowledge, her professional reputation was in ruins, and she was standing in the middle of it all, with nowhere to hide. "This isn't over," she whispered to me. "No," I agreed. "It's not." As Zara fled the festival, followed by whispers and stares, I felt Lyra's hand tighten on my arm. "Jesus Christ, Aiden, you destroyed her." "She destroyed herself," I replied. "I just made sure everyone could see it." But even as I said it, I knew this was only the beginning. Zara wouldn't go quietly, and neither would Damien Kessler once he realized what had happened. The real confrontation was still coming. I was looking forward to it. Sunday brought consequences I hadn't fully anticipated. My phone started buzzing at 7 a.m. with calls from numbers I didn't recognize, reporters apparently, who'd gotten wind of the festival incident through social media. The story was spreading beyond our small coastal community, picking up traction on gossip blogs and social media accounts. Local marketing executives' affair exposed at Arts Festival was trending on the regional news websites. Someone had recorded video of the messages appearing on the big screen, and it was being shared thousands of times. I was nursing my first coffee of the day when Terry called. "Jesus, Aiden, you made the news." I saw. Wasn't expecting it to go viral. "Zara's been calling me all morning trying to get your number. She sounds unhinged." That was concerning. Zara was dangerous when she was calm and calculating. An unhinged Zara was unpredictable. "What did you tell her?" "That you're handling this through lawyers now. But man, she's pissed. And apparently, so is her boyfriend. Mags called me too. Said Damien Kessler showed up at their office building yesterday afternoon, screaming about lawsuits and harassment." I set down my coffee cup. "He went to Zara's office?" "Yeah. Made a scene in the lobby demanding to know who was responsible for sabotaging his relationship. Security had to escort him out." This was escalating faster than I'd planned. Damien was supposed to be the smart, controlled businessman. If he was making public scenes, that meant he was panicking. Panicked people made mistakes. "I need another favor," I told Terry. "What now?" "Remember that parking garage across from Kessler's apartment building? The one with the good view of his balcony?" Terry sighed. "Aiden, what are you planning?" "Nothing illegal. Just some surveillance. I want to know what our boy Damien is up to." 2 hours later, Terry and I were set up in the parking garage with my professional drone equipment and telephoto lenses. Damien's apartment was on the 15th floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows that made privacy a challenge when you had professional-grade surveillance equipment pointed at you. We didn't have to wait long. At noon, Zara's BMW pulled into the apartment building's parking lot. She got out, moving with the sharp, angry gestures of someone barely containing their rage. 5 minutes later, we could see her in Damien's apartment, and even from a distance, it was clear they were arguing. "Can you hear anything?" Terry asked. I adjusted the directional microphone. "Not clearly, but they're definitely fighting. She keeps pointing toward the windows, probably talking about yesterday." The argument escalated. Through the telephoto lens, I could see Damien gesturing wildly, his face red with anger. Zara was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Then Damien did something that surprised me. He grabbed Zara by the shoulders and shook her, hard enough that she stumbled backward. "Holy shit," Terry muttered. "Did you get that?" "Every second of it." I lowered the camera. That changes things. Domestic violence, even minor incidents, had a way of shifting public sympathy. Zara might be an adulteress, but if Damien was getting physical with her, that made him the bigger villain in most people's eyes. I was still processing this development when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Aiden Drayven." "You snake." The voice was male, angry, with the kind of entitled rage I associated with men who'd never been told no. "This is Damien Kessler. I know who you are. You think you're clever, don't you? Humiliating Zara like that, destroying her career. But you have no idea what you're messing with. Actually, I think I have a pretty good idea. You're a married man having an affair with my wife, using her to steal business intelligence from her clients. Did I miss anything?" Silence on the other end. Then, "I want to meet. Tonight. The parking deck on Harbor Street, top level. Come alone." "Why would I do that?" "Because if you don't, I'll make sure Zara loses more than just her job. I have connections, influence. I can make her unemployable in this industry." The threat was clumsy, desperate, but it told me something important. Damien still cared about Zara, at least enough to try protecting her. That gave me leverage. "Fine, 9 p.m. But Damien, if you're thinking about getting physical, you should know I'm recording this conversation. Just be there." He hung up. Terry was staring at me with concern. "You're not actually going to meet him, are you?" Oh, I'm definitely going to meet him. But not the way he's expecting. The Harbor Street parking deck was a 7-story concrete structure that served the downtown business district. At 9 p.m. on a Sunday, it would be mostly empty, perfect for a private conversation or, if Damien was feeling violent, something worse. I arrived early, positioning myself on the 6th floor with a clear view of the top level. My drone was already in the air, recording everything from multiple angles. If Damien wanted a confrontation, I was going to make sure it was well documented. He showed up right on time, driving his silver Porsche like he was making a statement. Expensive car, expensive suit, expensive watch. Everything about Damien Kessler screamed money and privilege. I took the elevator to the top level, my phone already recording audio. Kessler. He turned toward me, and I got my first good look at Zara's lover. Tall, well-built, with the kind of artificially perfect appearance that came from personal trainers and cosmetic dentistry. Handsome in a generic way, like a stock photo of successful businessman. "You came," he said. "You threatened my wife. Of course I came." "Your wife?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "When's the last time she acted like your wife? When's the last time she looked at you the way she looks at me?" The words were meant to hurt, and they did. But I'd had time to process my anger, to channel it into something more useful than rage. "You're right," I said. "She doesn't look at me that way anymore. But then again, I'm not married to someone else while I'm sleeping with her." Damien's jaw tightened. "My marriage is complicated." "I'm sure it is. Does your wife know about the apartment you keep for your affairs? Does she know about the business intelligence you're buying with jewelry and hotel rooms?" "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know exactly what I'm talking about. I know about the insider information, the bid rigging, the corporate espionage. I know about all of it, Damien. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" He stepped closer, and I could smell his expensive cologne mixed with whiskey. "I'm going to destroy you, both of you. Zara thinks she can just walk away from this, but she's wrong. And you're going to regret the day you decided to mess with me." "Am I?" I pulled out my phone, showing him the recording app that had been running throughout our conversation. "Because right now, you're on camera threatening me. My drone up there is recording everything. And if something happens to me, all of this goes directly to the police, the press, and your wife." Damien's eyes widened as he spotted the drone hovering 50 feet above us. "You bastard!" "I'm a photographer, Damien. I document things. It's what I do." He lunged at me then, his control finally snapping. But I'd been expecting it. I stepped aside, letting his momentum carry him past me, and watched as he stumbled into the concrete wall. "Assault and battery," I said conversationally. "Also on camera." Damien straightened up, his expensive suit torn, his face flushed with humiliation and rage. "This isn't over." "No, it's not, but the next move is mine." As he drove away, tires squealing on the concrete, I felt a grim satisfaction. Damien Kessler was used to getting his way through money and intimidation. Tonight, he'd learned that some problems couldn't be solved with wealth and threats. But I also knew he was right about one thing. This wasn't over. Desperate people did desperate things, and I'd just made a very wealthy, very connected man very desperate. The real war was just beginning. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that made you believe in new beginnings. I was sitting in my kitchen, reading the local news coverage of what reporters were calling Festival Gate, when Lyra called. "We need to talk," she said without preamble. "Good morning to you too." "I'm serious, Aiden. This has gone too far. Zara's career is destroyed, Damien's threatening lawsuits, and now there are reporters calling me for comments. I never signed up for this level of drama." I could hear the panic in her voice. Lyra thrived on gossip and social manipulation, but she preferred to stay behind the scenes, pulling strings without getting her hands dirty. "You're the one who told me about the affair," I reminded her. "I thought you'd handle it privately, maybe get a divorce, split up quietly. I didn't think you'd turn it into a public spectacle." Then you don't know me very well. There was a pause. Zara's been staying at my place since Saturday. She's not doing well. Define not doing well. She's talking about revenge, Aiden. About making you pay for what you've done. She's been drinking, making phone calls to lawyers, to reporters, to anyone who'll listen. She's trying to spin this as harassment, as some kind of cyber-stalking campaign. That was concerning but not unexpected. Zara was a brand manager. Spinning narratives was literally her job. What's she saying? That you've been monitoring her illegally, that you hacked her phone, that you're unstable and potentially dangerous. She's trying to get a restraining order. I laughed, which seemed to surprise Lyra. Let her try. Everything I did was legal. I have receipts, documentation, witnesses. If Zara wants to make this a legal battle, she's going to lose. You sound awfully confident. I am confident. Because unlike Zara, I've been planning this carefully. Every move I've made has been calculated, documented, and legally defensible. Another pause. There's something else. Damien's wife found out about the affair. That was news I hadn't expected. How? Someone sent her screenshots of the messages from Saturday, along with photos of Damien and Zara together. His wife filed for divorce this morning. She's also talking to reporters. I felt a cold satisfaction settle in my chest. Interesting timing. Aiden? Did you contact his wife? I don't even know his wife's name. It was technically true. I didn't know her name, but Mags did, and Mags had been very interested in making sure all the victims of Damien and Zara's scheme were properly informed. This is spiraling out of control, Lyra said. People are getting hurt. People were already getting hurt. I just made sure the right people were getting hurt. I want out. Whatever this is, whatever you're planning next, I want no part of it. Too late for that, Lyra. You're already part of it. I hung up before she could respond. Lyra was useful, but she was also a liability. If she was getting cold feet now, she'd be a problem later. My phone buzzed with a text from Terry. Zara's at the office. HR meeting started an hour ago. I smiled. While I'd been talking to Lyra, Zara had been facing the consequences of her corporate espionage. The evidence Mags had compiled was damning: emails, financial records, meeting schedules that coincided perfectly with Kessler Tech's winning bids. Even if Zara somehow survived the adultery scandal, her professional life was over. But I wasn't done yet. The final phase of my plan required careful timing and a bit of theatrical flair. I'd spent Sunday evening making preparations, calling in favors, and setting up what I hoped would be the definitive end to this whole mess. At 3 p.m., I received the call I'd been waiting for. Mr. Drayven, this is Margaret Chen from Brennan Marketing. We need to speak with you about your wife's employment situation. Of course. When would be convenient? Actually, we were hoping you could come in today. There are some questions about the information that's come to light, and we'd like to get your statement for our internal investigation. Perfect. I'll be there in an hour. The Brennan Marketing offices occupied 3 floors of a glass and steel building downtown. I'd been there dozens of times for company parties and client events, always as Zara's supportive husband. Today, I was walking in as her destroyer. Margaret Chen met me in the lobby. She was a sharp woman in her 50s, with the kind of professional competence that had built Brennan Marketing into the region's premier advertising firm. Thank you for coming in, Aiden. I know this must be difficult for you. I appreciate you handling this professionally, I replied. I know Zara's situation reflects poorly on the company. We rode the elevator to the conference room where Mags was waiting with a stack of documents and a digital recorder. For the record, Margaret said as we sat down, Zara's employment has been terminated as of this morning. The evidence of corporate espionage was overwhelming. I understand. What we need from you is confirmation about the timeline of events. When did you first become aware of your wife's relationship with Damien Kessler? I walked them through the discovery process, the evidence I'd gathered, the confrontation at the parking garage. Everything documented, everything legal, everything designed to paint me as the wronged husband seeking justice rather than revenge. The insider information sharing, Mag said, that's potentially criminal. We're considering referring this to the district attorney. That's your decision, I said. I just want this to be over. It was a lie, but a convincing one. As I left the Brennan offices, I felt my phone buzzing with calls from unknown numbers. The story was spreading beyond local news now, picking up traction on social media and gossip blogs. Marketing executive fired for corporate espionage and adultery was trending on Twitter. But the real climax was still to come. That evening, I put the final phase of my plan into motion. I'd arranged for Zara, Damien, and Lyra to all be in the same place at the same time, without any of them knowing the others would be there. The location was perfect. The grand opening of a new gallery downtown, hosted by one of Lyra's competitors. The art world was small and incestuous. Everyone would be there, including reporters covering the cultural scene. I arrived early, positioning myself near the back of the gallery with a clear view of the entrance. My camera equipment was set up and ready, ostensibly to document the event for my commercial photography portfolio. Lyra arrived first, looking nervous and overdressed. She scanned the crowd, probably looking for me, but I stayed out of sight. Damien came next, still playing the role of successful businessman despite his crumbling personal life. His suit was perfect, his smile was practiced, but I could see the strain around his eyes. Finally, Zara made her entrance. She looked terrible, pale, thin, with the hollow-eyed appearance of someone who hadn't been sleeping. But she was trying to maintain her professional facade, working the room like nothing had happened. The three of them spotted each other simultaneously. The confrontation that followed was everything I'd hoped for and more. Voices raised, accusations flying, old grievances aired in front of the entire local art establishment, Lyra trying to distance herself from both of them, Damien blaming Zara for his divorce, Zara screaming about betrayal and manipulation, and I captured every second of it. The final blow came when Damien, drunk and desperate, made a grab for Zara's purse, trying to get her phone. She fought back, and in the struggle, they knocked over a sculpture worth more than most people's cars. Security intervened, police were called, and by the time the dust settled, all three of them had been escorted out in handcuffs for public disturbance and property damage. I watched it all through my camera lens, documenting their final humiliation with professional detachment. As the gallery emptied and the police finished their reports, I packed up my equipment and walked out into the cool night air. My phone was already buzzing with notifications. The video I'd live-streamed to social media was being shared thousands of times. 3 days later, the local newspaper ran a follow-up story. Marketing executive and lover face criminal charges in gallery incident. The article detailed Zara's firing, Damien's divorce, and Lyra's resignation from her gallery position after being implicated in the corporate espionage scheme. I was mentioned only briefly as the wronged husband who exposed the affair through legally obtained evidence. Perfect. Sitting in my kitchen, reading the newspaper coverage of their downfall, I felt a deep satisfaction. Zara had betrayed me, humiliated me, stolen from me. But in the end, she'd underestimated me. She'd thought I was weak, passive, someone who would accept her lies and move on quietly. Instead, I'd systematically destroyed everything she cared about: her career, her reputation, her relationship, her social standing. No sanctuary for the faithless, indeed. The gallery doors had slammed behind them, echoes of their disgrace bouncing off the high arches. No sanctuary for the faithless, not in this town, and not on my watch.